The wind howled across the plains of the Troad. Cold, sharp, and relentless. As if the land itself remembered an old betrayal. Far beneath the rising walls of the future Troy. Long before Paris, before Helen, before the great war that would shake the world. Another story lived here. A story of arrogance, divine wrath. And a curse that would echo through generations. Tonight, we go back to the beginning. To the very roots of Troy's tragedy. To the moment a king defied the gods. And doomed his bloodline forever. This is Episode 1, The Curse of Troy, How It All Began. To understand why Troy fell. Why heroes like Hector and Aeneas were fated to suffer. Why the gods themselves turned against the city. We must start with the man who built Troy's foundations. A king named Laomedon. A ruler whose pride reached far beyond the walls he wished to raise. But to understand this curse, we must go back to a time before Troy existed, when the gods still walked among mortals, and deals with immortals came at a terrible price. Long before Laomedon, a city already stood on the same sacred hill. It was called Ilium, founded by a mortal named Aeolus, the great ancestor of Troy's royal line. Aeolus had once traveled to Phrygia to compete in athletic games. His victories impressed the king, who awarded him 50 young men and 50 maidens, a symbolic gesture of great honor. But Aeolus' true reward did not come from mortals. One night, while Aeolus prayed to Zeus for a sign, a sacred object fell from the sky, a shining statue called the Palladium. It was said to be a gift from Athena herself. A divine promise. As long as the Palladium remained within the city, Troy would never fall. Aeolus built the first walls of Ilium, believing no power on earth could challenge him. But he was wrong. For even divine protection cannot save a city from the flaws of its rulers. And one ruler would test the patience of the gods themselves. Aeolus' son, Laomedon, inherited the throne after his father's death. At first glance, Laomedon seemed a worthy king, strong, intelligent, ambitious. A man determined to create the greatest city the world had ever seen. But beneath the surface lay something darker, a streak of arrogance. A belief that he could outwit anyone, mortal or divine. Laomedon wanted grander walls. Walls taller than Aeolus ever dreamed of. Walls that would intimidate enemies. And proclaim his power to all nations. But to build such walls, he needed labor beyond mortal limits. And so, Laomedon made a decision that would shape the fate of Troy forever. He dared to bargain with the gods. One day, as Laomedon stood surveying his half-finished walls, two strangers appeared. To human eyes, they looked like wandering craftsmen, muscular, sun-browned, with tools slung over their shoulders. But these were no ordinary men. They were gods in disguise. Poseidon, lord of the seas. And Apollo, god of the sun, music, and prophecy. Banished, temporarily, from Olympus for plotting against Zeus. They sought work among mortals. And Laomedon, blind to their true nature, saw an opportunity. He approached the two strangers and said, "Build my walls. Make them strong, unbreakable, eternal. Do this, and I will reward you with riches beyond measure." Poseidon and Apollo agreed. Not because they needed gold, but because they enjoyed labor among mortals, a chance to shape the world with their own hands. For an entire year, under the blazing sun and through bitter cold, the two gods worked tirelessly. Poseidon lifted massive stones as easily as pebbles. Apollo shaped and polished them until they fit with divine perfection. Together, they built ramparts so tall that birds changed direction to avoid crashing into them. Under their hands, the city began to transform into a fortress worthy of legends. Laomedon watched, impressed. But in his heart, greed began to grow. At the end of the agreed year, the walls of Troy were finished. People of the Troad gathered in awe, whispering, "These walls were shaped by the gods. No enemy will ever conquer Troy. This city will stand for eternity." Poseidon and Apollo returned to Laomedon to claim their payment. But the king's eyes had already changed. The spark of ambition had shifted into the shadow of treachery. Laomedon said, "I owe you nothing. Leave at once, or I will have you beaten and driven from my city." For a moment, the two gods remained silent. Not because they were powerless, but because they could not believe a mortal would dare cheat the divine. Apollo's eyes glowed with quiet fury. Poseidon's breath stirred the dust at their feet. And then, Poseidon spoke with a voice that rolled like thunder. "Laomedon, son of Helenus, your arrogance will be your ruin." Apollo added, "This city shall fall. Your line shall suffer sorrow after sorrow. The curse begins now." With that, the gods vanished. And the skies darkened over Troy. When gods curse a city, the punishment is never subtle. The very next season, Poseidon sent a sea monster, a massive beast with scales like black stone and eyes blazing like fire. It rose from the bay near Troy, smashing ships like toys, tearing apart fishermen, and sending waves crashing into the city's outskirts. Farmers abandoned their fields. Merchants fled. People whispered in terror, "This is the wrath of Poseidon. This is the curse of our king." The monster demanded sacrifice. Every month, a maiden was chosen by lot to be chained to the rocks near the sea. A terrible offering meant to calm the beast. But the monster never went away. The curse remained, growing stronger and hungrier. Laomedon tried everything to hide the truth. He told his people, "The gods envy our greatness. This is a test of Troy's strength. We must endure." But behind closed doors, the king knew the truth. He had brought this curse upon his own city. The priests advised him, "Send for help. Find a hero. Only a mortal blessed by the gods can save Troy now." And so, Laomedon reached out to a name that echoed across the world. A name destined to shape myths for ages. Heracles. Heracles arrived in Troy not as a humble savior, but as a living force of nature. Tall, broad-shouldered, clad in the skin of the Nemean lion he had slain, with a bow said to have been crafted by the god Apollo himself. Laomedon greeted him with false humility. "Great Heracles, slay the monster that plagues our city. Save Troy, and I promise you the horses Zeus gave to my father. Horses no mortal has ever seen. Horses born of the wind." Heracles agreed. He did not know that Laomedon had no intention of keeping his word. The next dawn, the people of Troy gathered on the cliffs. Far below, a maiden was chained to the rocks, a trembling sacrifice selected by cruel fate. The waters churned. The sea trembled. A monstrous shape broke the waves. The sea monster rose, its roar shaking the earth. Its jaws wide enough to swallow a ship whole. And then? Heracles stepped forward. He drew his bow. The first arrow struck the creature's eye. The second pierced its throat. The third buried itself deep in its heart. With a final roar, the monster collapsed into the sea, staining the water red. The people of Troy erupted in joy. They hailed Heracles as savior. The curse seemed lifted. All that remained was one thing. Laomedon's promise. When Heracles came to claim the divine horses, Laomedon's expression hardened. He said, "You have done little? A beast slain by arrows. I will not reward you. Leave Troy and never return." The people gasped. Even Laomedon's servants trembled. But Heracles said nothing. He simply stared at the king. His silence was colder than the sea itself. Then he turned and walked away. Before leaving, Heracles spoke only one sentence. "Laomedon, when I return, I will tear down these walls, stone by stone." And he departed Troy with a fury not even the gods could restrain. Years passed. Troy grew stronger. Laomedon believed the gods had forgotten their curse. He believed Heracles would never return. But one day, black sails appeared on the horizon. Heracles had come back. Not alone, but with an army of warriors, men hardened by battle, loyal to him beyond death. Laomedon panicked. He tried to negotiate. He offered gold, silver, jewels, anything, except the horses he had promised. Heracles was unmoved. "You broke your word," he said. "Now Troy will pay the price." This was not the famous fall of Troy that would come centuries later. This was the first destruction. A lesser-known tragedy. But the one that planted the seeds of the greater fall to come. Heracles' attack was swift and brutal. The god built walls that Laomedon had relied upon. The walls Poseidon and Apollo themselves had crafted, offered no protection. Because the gods who built them now stood against them. Heracles broke through the gates. Trojans fled. Laomedon's sons were killed. All except one. A young prince named Podarces. When Heracles stormed the palace, Podarces threw himself at the hero's feet. According to legend, Podarces offered his gold-embroidered veil, a simple, heartfelt object, in exchange for his life. Heracles was moved by the boy's courage. He spared him. Podarces would later become known as Priam, the future king of Troy, and the father of Hector. Laomedon was killed by Heracles. His arrogance had destroyed him. His betrayal had doomed his family. But the curse did not die with him. It passed to Priam, and then to Priam's children, and to their children. Generations later, when Hector stood before Achilles, when Andromache wept over her child, when Aeneas fled the burning city, all of it, every tragedy, every loss, was rooted in Laomedon's arrogance. The gods never forgot. And Troy paid the price again and again. The fall of Troy did not begin with Paris, or Helen, or any mortal love story. It began with a broken promise. A king who cheated the gods. A curse that spanned centuries. From this single betrayal, an entire civilization was doomed. This is the true beginning of the Trojan Saga. The spark that would ignite an age of heroes. A decade of war. And a legacy that would shape history. And that was the story of Laomedon, the man who cursed Troy with his pride. Next time, we follow this curse to its next chapter, the birth of Paris, the prince whose destiny was written long before he took his first breath. If you want more stories from Trojan mythology, subscribe for weekly episodes. Night fell over Troy. Quiet, heavy, and unnatural. The moon hid behind dark clouds as if terrified to shine upon the palace. Inside the royal chamber, Queen Hecate tossed in her sleep, her breath sharp and uneven. She saw a vision. A terrible vision. A newborn child. Wrapped in cloth. Burning like a torch. The flames did not consume him. They consumed Troy. Its towers collapsed. Its people screamed. Its walls cracked and fell into the dust. And the flames, all of them, came from the baby in her arms. Hecate woke with a scream. The dream was not just a dream. It was a warning. This is the story of Paris, the prince of Troy who was never meant to live. Yet whose fate would change the world. Paris is remembered as the man who stole Helen. The catalyst of the Trojan War. The reason thousands of heroes marched, fought, and died. But his story begins long before he became a lover. A warrior. Or even a prince. His story begins with a prophecy. A prophecy that nearly ended his life before it began. To understand this prophecy, we must step into the royal halls of Troy. Into a world ruled by gods, visions, and destiny. A world where a single nightmare could change the fate of an empire. King Priam and Queen Hecate ruled a Troy reborn. Years after Heracles had destroyed the first city, Priam rebuilt Troy with new walls, new temples, and new hope. Under his reign, Troy flourished. Its streets buzzed with life. Merchants from distant lands filled its markets. Its warriors were respected across Asia Minor. Priam and Hecate already had many children, Hector, the noble warrior. Cassandra, cursed with true visions no one believed. Helenus, gifted with prophecy. Deiphobus, Troilus, and many others. But Hecate was pregnant again. A child who would one day be known by many names, Alexandros. Paris. The Prince of Ruin. In the final month of her pregnancy, Hecate experienced a dream unlike any other. She dreamed she gave birth, not to a child, but to a flaming torch. The torch screamed like an infant. But its flames spread across Troy, burning houses, temples, and warriors. People fled in terror. Soldiers tried to fight the fire with water and sand. But every drop only made the flames grow stronger. The burning infant glowed brighter. And Troy crumbled into ash. Hecate awoke trembling, drenched in sweat. Her scream echoed throughout the palace. Servants rushed to her, but she could not move. She could barely breathe. She whispered only two words. The baby burns. At dawn, Priam summoned the wisest prophets in the land. Cassandra came first, eyes distant, haunted by the curse Apollo placed upon her. She saw the future clearly. But no one ever listened. Helenus arrived next, calm, composed, deeply intelligent. He had inherited prophetic gifts too, though not cursed like his sister. Finally, the priests and seers of Troy gathered in the council chamber. Hecate described her dream. The room fell silent. Helenus' voice broke the silence. "This is no dream. It is a prophecy." Cassandra, standing in the shadows, whispered, "The child will bring destruction. He will be the ruin of Troy." But Priam frowned. His love for his unborn child clouded his judgment. "A dream cannot doom a prince," he said. But Cassandra stepped forward, voice trembling. "No, father. He will open the gate to our enemies. He will burn our city. He must not live." If any other seer had spoken, Priam might have listened. But Cassandra's curse meant no one believed her. Still, every other prophet, one by one, echoed her words. "The child will destroy Troy. He will be the cause of war. He will bring flame and sorrow." Priam's heart broke. To save Troy? He would have to sacrifice his newborn son. The day of the birth arrived. A storm raged outside. Thunder boomed like the roar of an enraged god. Lightning flashed across the sky as if slicing through fate itself. Hecate cried out as the midwives gathered. Priam paced outside, torn between dread and hope. When the baby was born, the storm suddenly calmed. The wind stopped. The rain softened to a drizzle. Some took this as a blessing. Others believed it was the gods watching. The child was healthy, beautiful, peaceful. Hecate held him close, tears streaming down her face. "He is innocent," she whispered. "How can he be our doom?" But Priam looked at the child and trembled. The baby's eyes were bright, intelligent, as if he understood everything. And as Priam stared, he remembered the fear in Hecate's voice, the warnings of the prophets, and the flames in her dream. The decision was made. The child must die. Priam summoned his most loyal servant, a man named Achilles. Priam placed the child in his arms. "Take him to Mount Ida," Priam said quietly. "Leave him there to die. He must not return to Troy." Hecate cried out, "No. Please, listen. Let him live. We can hide him. We can protect him." But Priam's voice hardened. "If he lives, Troy dies." Hecate collapsed to the floor, sobbing. But the decision was final. Achilles bowed his head. He was loyal to the king. But in his heart, he felt the weight of the sin he was about to commit. Still, he carried the baby away. The prince of Troy was being led to his death. Achilles traveled deep into the wilderness outside Troy. Mount Ida was a vast, sacred mountain, home to shepherds, wild beasts, and hidden springs. As he climbed, the baby slept peacefully in his arms, unaware that each step brought him closer to death. When Achilles reached a remote clearing, he laid the infant down near a thicket of wild fig trees. He whispered softly, "Forgive me, little one. This is not your fault. But destiny demands this." He turned away. He took a few steps. But then he stopped. Something was wrong. He heard a sound behind him. The cry of a child? He turned around, expecting to see the infant struggling. But instead he saw a bear. A massive, mother bear, approaching the infant. Achilles froze in terror. But what happened next defied all nature. The bear did not harm the baby. She sniffed him gently, then laid down beside him, and began to nurse him. The child drank calmly, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Achilles fell to his knees. Tears filled his eyes. He whispered, "The gods have chosen him." He could not kill the baby now. Not after witnessing such a miracle. He believed the gods had intervened, that the child was meant to live. So he made a decision that defied Priam's orders. He left the baby, not to die, but to be raised on Mount Idaho. Days passed. Weeks passed. Then months. Then years. The infant grew into a child. Shepherds living on Mount Ida discovered him and took him in. A man named Odysseus raised him as his own, unaware of the boy's royal blood. They named him Paris. He grew into a handsome, kind, and intelligent youth, strong with a shepherd's build, gentle with animals, beloved by everyone on the mountain. Paris had no idea who he was. But destiny whispered to him in subtle ways. Animals trusted him. Birds perched on his shoulder. Even the wildest bulls bowed their heads when he passed. Everyone agreed, this boy is blessed. But blessings are sometimes warnings in disguise. One day, while Paris tended his flock, he witnessed something extraordinary. Two rams were fighting violently. Their horns clashed again and again, echoing across the valley. Paris stepped between them. He lifted his hand, and both rams stopped. They stared at him with calm eyes, then walked away peacefully. The shepherds watching were stunned. One whispered, "This boy is no ordinary child. He has the presence of a prince, or a god." Paris smiled, unaware of the truth. But far away, in the halls of Olympus, the gods took notice. They watched him with growing interest. Because Paris was destined to play a role in their quarrels, their rivalries and their wars. Soon, they would summon him. Back in Troy, Queen Hecate never recovered from losing her child. Though she bore more children, a small part of her heart remained broken. Every night she whispered, "Did he die alone? Was he cold? Did he cry for me?" Priam, too, carried the burden of the decision. Though he tried to justify it, he often wondered, "Did we kill an innocent child?" Years later, a prophecy reached Troy. "The child lives." Priam dismissed it as rumor. Cassandra whispered, "He will return. And when he does, our fate will be sealed." But no one listened. Paris lived happily as a shepherd, unaware that destiny slowly drew him toward the city of his birth. And toward the greatest judgment the gods would ever impose on mortals. The judgment of Paris. But that is a story for the next episode. As the sun set on Mount Ida, Paris sat beside a fire, playing a simple tune on his shepherd's flute. He looked up at the stars and felt a strange pull in his heart, as if the heavens were calling his name. He had no idea that far above, on Mount Olympus, three goddesses watched him with interest. Hera, Athena, Aphrodite. And they were preparing a test, a divine choice that would ignite the Trojan War. This was the story of the birth of Paris, the prince who was destined to bring fire to Troy. Next time, we uncover the jealousy, beauty, and divine rivalry that shaped his fate. Episode 3, The Judgment of Paris, the Golden Apple. Subscribe for more stories from Trojan mythology. chaos rarely announces itself. Sometimes it enters quietly, uninvited, unwanted, unavoidable. Let me take you to a day when the sky was bright, Olympus glittered like molten gold, and the gods celebrated a wedding that should have been remembered for joy. Instead, it became the spark that set the world ablaze. It was the grandest wedding the immortals had hosted in centuries. The mortal hero Peleus was to wed Thetis, the sea nymph whose beauty rivaled the moon's reflection upon calm waters. Every god, every goddess, every celestial being was invited. Every god. Except one. Eris. The goddess of strife. The embodiment of discord. Her absence was intentional. Because wherever Eris walked, friendships broke, families fractured, and kingdoms crumbled. As the feast reached its height, golden goblets overflowing, Apollo's lyre echoing across the hall. A sudden cold wind swept through the celebration. Torches flickered. Laughter halted. And there, in the doorway, stood Eris, wrapped in shadows, her eyes burning with insult and vengeance. In her hand, she held a single object. A golden apple. Shining, polished, perfect. Etched with 3 simple words. To the fairest. Without a word, Eris threw the apple into the center of the gathering. The golden fruit spun across the marble floor, glinting under divine light. Until it stopped at the feet of Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. 3 goddesses. 3 embodiments of power. 3 rivals. The moment the apple touched the ground, destiny itself shifted. Hera, queen of the gods, regal, commanding, the very embodiment of sovereignty. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and war. Unmatched in intellect, unchallenged in battle. Aphrodite, goddess of beauty and desire, radiant like dawn itself. The 3 stared at the apple. Then at each other. A crack of tension echoed through Olympus like thunder. Hera spoke first. Her voice carried the cold authority of a queen.
This apple is mine. None surpass me.
Athena stepped forward, her grey eyes sharp as a blade.
You rule, Hera, but beauty, grace, perfection, those belong to wisdom, and to me.
Aphrodite responded with a soft laugh, sweet as honey.
Wisdom is admirable, sovereignty respectable, but beauty? Beauty conquers all. The apple is mine.
The hall trembled. Each goddess called upon the gods as witnesses, demanding Zeus to judge. Zeus lifted his hand to silence the rising storm. But the king of the gods was no fool. Whichever goddess he chose, the other 2 would become his eternal enemies. So he refused to choose. Instead, he appointed a judge. And not a god. Not a titan. Not a hero of Olympus. But a mortal. A young man whose fate would soon reshape the world. Paris. Prince of Troy? Far from Olympus, amid the quiet slopes of Mount Ida, lived Paris. Unaware of his royal birth. Unaware of the prophecy that marked him. Unaware that kings and gods would soon speak his name with fear. He lived as a simple shepherd, gentle, thoughtful, fair in judgment. A man who avoided conflict yet possessed a natural sense of justice. One afternoon as he tended his flock, sunlight suddenly scattered into golden dust. The sky split open. And 3 goddesses descended upon him, accompanied by Hermes, the messenger. Paris fell to his knees, trembling, but Hermes raised him. Paris, son of Troy. Zeus commands you to judge which goddess is the fairest. The young shepherd paled. Me, a mortal. How can I judge the immortals? But it was too late. Fate had chosen him. Hermes presented the golden apple. The three goddesses stepped forward. Smiling, Paris had no idea he was stepping into a trap woven by destiny. Hera's offer. Hera approached first, towering with regal strength. Her voice was thunder wrapped in velvet.
Paris, choose me, and I shall give you what mortals crave most, power. I will make you ruler of Asia. No kingdom will rival yours.
Her words painted visions of cities bowing, armies kneeling, thrones waiting. Paris swallowed, but said nothing. Athena's offer. Athena stepped forward, her armor glinting.
Choose me, Paris, and I will grant you unmatched wisdom, victory in battle, glory that echoes through centuries.
She showed him visions of triumph, Paris leading armies, strategizing battles, his name etched in history. Again, Paris remained silent. Aphrodite's offer. Finally Aphrodite walked toward him. Her presence was softness and fire intertwined, a warmth that melted the mountain wind. She whispered,
Paris, choose me, and I shall give you the greatest gift of all, love. I will give you the most beautiful woman on earth.
Paris's breath caught. The goddess leaned closer, voice like silk.
Her name is Helen.
Time stopped. Helen of Sparta, wife of King Menelaus. The jewel of Greece. The face poets admired, kings respected. No soldier could win her. No empire could possess her. But Paris could. With Aphrodite's help. And in that moment, a young shepherd made a decision that would drown nations in blood. Paris lifted the golden apple. Hera's eyes narrowed. Athena's jaw hardened. Aphrodite smiled. Paris stepped forward and placed the apple into the hands of the goddess of love. Aphrodite. The air trembled. Fate shuddered. The world shifted. Hera's fury was volcanic. Athena's disappointment was a blade. Both goddesses turned away in wrath, and in that twist of resentment, the seeds of the Trojan War were sown. Aphrodite touched Paris's cheek.
You have chosen well, and I will keep my promise.
Across the Aegean Sea, in Sparta, Helen lived as queen. Even among the royals of Greece, her beauty was ethereal, a living flame of grace, charm, and allure. Menelaus, her husband, honored her. But no love, no marriage, could override the will of the gods. Aphrodite appeared to Helen in dreams, whispering of a stranger from Troy. Of a love destined to rise. And destined to destroy. Helen's heart stirred, not by her own will, but by divine design. And so destiny prepared to bind two souls. At the cost of thousands, Paris returned home, unaware that his decision had changed his kingdom's fate. King Priam welcomed him with open arms. Queen Hecate felt unease, a faint echo of the prophecy that once condemned her son. But for a moment, Troy rejoiced in his return. And Aphrodite whispered to Paris.
Now, go to Sparta.
The judgment was made. The apple chosen. The path carved. Paris would sail to Greece. Helen would leave Sparta. And the greatest war in ancient history would ignite. But all wars start with a single moment. A single decision. A single apple. And thus ends the tale of the judgment of Paris, the spark that would burn the world of heroes. The next chapter. Helen's abduction. And the wrath of Greece. Some people are remembered for what they did. Others, for what they caused. But there are a rare few, those whose very existence bends the world around them. Helen was one of them. The woman whose beauty would make poets weep. Whose love would shatter kingdoms. Whose life would become the axis of the greatest war ever told. But before she became the Queen of Sparta, before Paris saw her in a dream, before she walked willingly or unwillingly toward Troy, Helen was a child of myth, a daughter of Zeus. And her story begins long before the fire that consumed Troy. Long before Helen became the most desired woman in the world, Zeus looked upon earth and saw beauty. A beauty in the form of Leda, Queen of Sparta, graceful, gentle, adorned with a quiet strength. One spring evening, a swan descended from the clouds, pure white, wings shimmering with divine radiance. But this was no ordinary swan. It was Zeus. And from this union of mortal and god, 2 eggs were laid, glowing faintly with celestial warmth. From these eggs emerged 4 children. Castor, Polydeuces, also known as Pollux, Clytemnestra, and the child who would stun the world, Helen. Helen from her earliest years seemed touched by something beyond mortal understanding. Sunlight lingered on her skin longer than on others. Flowers bloomed when she walked past. Even as a child, her face had a quiet radiance. A beauty not made for the mortal world. A beauty that would shape destiny itself. But beauty is never born without consequence. And Helen was no exception. As Helen grew, her beauty spread like wildfire across Greece. Heroes whispered her name. Kings spoke of her in awe. Poets already began crafting verses about a girl barely reaching womanhood. When Helen was still young, barely of marriageable age, the legendary Athenian king Theseus heard tales of her beauty. Theseus, hero of the Minotaur, conqueror of Amazons, slayer of beasts. But even he was not immune. One day, he arrived in Sparta. Not to court her, but to take her. Abduction? He and his close friend Pirithous seized Helen and carried her away to Attica, believing she was destined to be his queen. Yet destiny had other plans. Her brothers, the famed Dioscuri, Castor, and Pollux, chased Theseus across the lands. They reclaimed Helen, a young girl shaken but unharmed. But this event, this first attempt to claim her, was only a warning. A sign of what was to come. For Helen would never be allowed a simple life. Her beauty had become a beacon. And soon, every man in Greece would try to claim her. Helen matured into womanhood. And the world changed around her. Poets later wrote, she was the face that launched 1,000 ships. But her beauty was more than physical. There was a calm in her eyes. A grace in her movements. A warmth in her voice. She carried an aura that softened even the hardest hearts, yet ignited fire in others. Some called it divine charm. Others called it a curse. In marketplaces, people stopped speaking when she passed. Sailors carried stories of her across the sea. Sculptors tried and failed to capture her likeness. Queens feared her. Kings desired her. Helen herself did not choose this life. But destiny rarely asks for permission. It simply unfolds. When Helen reached the proper age, Tyndareus, king of Sparta and Helen's earthly father, announced her marriage. This was not just a royal wedding. This was the greatest gathering of suitors ever recorded in Greek myth. From every kingdom, every fortress, every distant shore, heroes came. Warriors, kings, princes, demigods. At least 100 suitors stood in the Spartan palace, all seeking her hand. Among them, Menelaus, prince of Mycenae. Ajax the greater, colossal and unshakable. Ajax the lesser, swift and proud. Diomedes, king of Argos, fierce and strategic. Odysseus, clever king of Ithaca. Patroclus, loyal companion of Achilles. Idomeneus, future hero of Troy. And even envoys from distant lands, carrying gifts of gold and promises of peace. The hall was filled with tension. The slightest insult could spark bloodshed. For how do you choose from 100 kings and heroes? Tyndareus hesitated. He feared that choosing one suitor meant making 99 enemies. Enemies powerful enough to unite and destroy Sparta. And so, the most cunning man in the hall stepped forward. Odysseus. Odysseus did not come for Helen. He wanted something else. The hand of Penelope. And so he offered Tyndareus a solution, one that would bind every king in the room. A bargain. Odysseus said.
Make all the suitors swear an unbreakable oath to defend the husband Helen chooses against any man who should challenge him.
This meant no war between suitors, no grudges, no betrayal, and if anyone dared abduct Helen, the entire Greek world would rally to bring her back. Tyndareus agreed. And so every suitor, every king, every warrior, every prince, placed his hand over a sacrificed horse and swore the most binding sacred oath in Greek history. To defend the chosen husband of Helen, even at the cost of my life. The oath would later summon these kings, this entire army, to the shores of Troy. But that part of the story had not yet arrived. Now came the choice, and the world held its breath. When the moment arrived, Helen walked forward. The suitors parted like waves before a ship. She studied them carefully. Ajax with his towering might. Diomedes with his warlike stance. Idomeneus with his regal confidence. Odysseus with his sharp, calculating gaze. Menelaus with his quiet strength and kind demeanor. Helen did not choose the strongest, nor the cleverest, nor the wealthiest. She chose Menelaus, prince of Mycenae, brother of Agamemnon, a man known not for boasting, but for loyalty, discipline, and steady honor. A man who would protect her. A man who loved her not as an object of legend, but as a woman. Menelaus stepped forward, humbled. And in that moment, the fate of nations settled into place. The suitors accepted the choice. The oath held firm. Peace settled, temporarily. A grand feast erupted across Sparta. The marriage of Menelaus and Helen became one of the most celebrated unions in Greek history. But beneath the golden light, beneath the wine and laughter, destiny waited. For a queen of Sparta would not remain in Sparta forever. Helen adjusted to her new role with grace. As queen, she was adored. She walked the palace halls like a living goddess, yet she carried a humility that made her beloved by the people. Menelaus proved gentle and devoted. He treated her with respect, trusted her wisdom, and honored her lineage. Together, they ruled Sparta in peace. But the gods were not finished with her. For beauty given by the gods is never free. Aphrodite watched Helen from Olympus, a silent guardian, a silent architect of fate. She knew what was coming. She knew of Paris's judgment. She knew of the promise she made on Mount Idaho. Helen was marked. Menelaus sensed something too, a distant storm forming far across the Aegean, as if the world trembled beneath destiny's weight. For Helen's life had always been two stories. One written by mortals, and one whispered by gods. Those stories were about to collide. While Helen lived in peace, across the sea Paris made preparations. Guided by Aphrodite. Driven by the promise of love. Compelled by fate. He set sail for Sparta. The winds favored him. The sea carried him gently. As if the world itself wanted this meeting. When Paris arrived, Menelaus received him warmly. Hospitality was sacred in Greece. And Paris, handsome, polite, charming, won the hearts of many. Including Helen. Whether by divine influence or genuine connection or a mixture of both. Helen felt drawn to him. Their conversations lingered. Their eyes met often. Their bond deepened. Some say she resisted. Some say she surrendered willingly. Some say her mind was clouded by Aphrodite. But one thing was certain. Paris had come to claim what was promised. Helen's heart felt torn. She had lived a life shaped by others. Desired for her beauty. Taken by Theseus as a girl. Chosen by Menelaus. Watched by the gods. Bound by an oath she did not choose. And now Paris, gentle, poetic, mysterious Paris, stood before her. A man who looked at her not as a queen. Not as a prize. But as a soul longing for connection. Aphrodite whispered in Helen's dreams, promising love, destiny, and passion beyond mortal comprehension. Helen became restless. Her steps grew slower. Her gaze distant. Her thoughts filled with the young prince from Troy. The palace began to sense it. Even Menelaus sensed it. But fate cannot be outrun. One morning, as sunlight broke over Sparta, Helen made a choice. A choice that would shake the foundations of the world. Before the war. Before the ships. Before the 10-year siege. There was a woman whose beauty bent destiny. A queen who carried the weight of God's promises. A child of Zeus marked from birth. Helen's story had only begun. The next chapter would not be peaceful. It would not be gentle. It would not be quiet. For soon, Paris would take Helen from Sparta, willingly or unwillingly, and the oath of the suitors would ignite the greatest war mankind had ever seen. And that is where destiny leads us next. Episode 5, Paris in Sparta, The Forbidden Love. How Paris seduced or kidnapped Helen. There are moments in history when fate does not whisper. It arrives. Not as a prophecy. Not as a warning. But as a person. When Paris, Prince of Troy, stepped onto Spartan soil, the world did not yet know that every love, every vow, every promise made in that moment, would soon echo in the clash of swords and the roar of burning cities. Paris did not come to Sparta as an enemy. He came as a guest. As a prince. As the chosen of Aphrodite. But beneath diplomacy and courtesy, desire moved. And love, or illusion, or madness, or divine manipulation, began its dangerous work. This is the story of the forbidden love that brought Greece and Troy to war. And how a queen and a prince stepped willingly into the fire. The harbor of Sparta glowed under the soft Mediterranean sun. Paris stood at the bow of his ship, cloak fluttering in the wind, eyes fixed on the land Aphrodite promised would change his life. Behind him, sailors worked in silent reverence, for they knew their prince carried a secret destiny. As the ship lowered anchor, Spartan guards approached with caution, spears held high, shields reflecting the bright morning sun. Paris stepped down with grace, posture regal but humble. Soon, King Menelaus himself arrived. A warm smile. A gesture of hospitality. A handshake between two rulers.
Welcome, Prince Paris of Troy. Our halls honor those who come in peace.
Paris bowed slightly, his voice calm.
Sparta's kindness is known across the seas. I am honored to stand here.
They walked together toward the palace, unaware that with every step, Paris was walking deeper into destiny. And closer to the queen who would change his life. Inside the palace, Helen stood waiting, not as a goddess, not as a legend, but as a queen fulfilling her duty. Yet when Paris entered, time shifted. For a heartbeat, the world quieted. Helen's eyes met his. Paris paused. A gentle breath escaped her lips. There was no need for words, their connection was immediate. Some say it was love. Some say it was Aphrodite's enchantment. Some say it was destiny already fulfilled. But in that moment, Helen of Sparta saw the man she would risk everything for. Paris bowed deeply.
Queen Helen. The stories fall short of truth.
Helen smiled softly, not flattered, not amused. But moved.
Troy speaks highly of poetry. Now I see why.
Menelaus noticed their exchange. But interpreted it as simple courtesy. For kings rarely believe they stand at the edge of losing everything. Days passed with feasts, speeches, hunts, and games. Menelaus honored Paris as royal protocol demanded. Paris matched every gesture with diplomacy and charm. But beneath the surface, something darker stirred. Paris sought moments alone, quiet conversations, chance encounters, shared glances. Helen avoided him at first. She was queen. Wife. Mother. The symbol of Spartan pride. Yet every night, she found her thoughts drifting back to him. And every morning, she fought the desire that waited beneath her calm exterior. During a walk through palace gardens, their distance finally broke. Paris reached gently for a single flower, an iris, and offered it to her.
Some beauties must be admired, even when they are beyond reach.
Helen hesitated. Then she took the flower. Just that simple gesture, a hand extended, a flower accepted, shifted the balance of the world. As night fell across Sparta, Paris sat alone on a balcony overlooking the sea. The wind carried the scent of salt and jasmine. But another presence lingered, Aphrodite. Soft golden dust swirled, and the goddess of love appeared. Her voice was silk and fire intertwined.
Why do you hesitate, Paris? She is the woman I promised you.
Paris clenched his jaw.
She is married. A queen. Greece will never forgive this.
Aphrodite stepped closer.
Love is not granted to the cautious, but to the bold.
She rested a hand over his heart.
Helen already walks toward you. All she needs is to see that your heart calls her.
Paris closed his eyes. When he opened them, Aphrodite was gone. But her influence remained. One evening, Menelaus left Sparta to attend a funeral in Crete. Helen remained behind. Paris knew this was the moment destiny had carved for him. That night, under moonlight, he found Helen standing at the palace balcony. No guards. No courtiers. No king. Just them. Paris approached slowly.
Helen. I have tried to remain silent. But my heart speaks even when I forbid it.
Helen closed her eyes.
You are dangerous, Paris.
Only because the world fears what it cannot control.
Helen trembled, not from fear, but from truth. And said,
If we cross this line, we cannot return.
Paris stepped closer, close enough that their breaths intertwined.
Then let us never return.
Silence. Then Helen whispered.
I knew. From the moment I saw you.
Their lips finally met. And history shifted. Stories differ. Some say Helen fell willingly, choosing passion over duty. Others insist Paris kidnapped her, taking her against her will. But myth is not made from certainty. It is made from consequence. What we know is this. Helen left Sparta, and boarded Paris's ship. Paris believed love justified everything. Helen believed destiny demanded her to follow. Whether seduced or stolen. Helen left her homeland, and the world changed. Before dawn, Paris and Helen stood at the Spartan harbor. Sailors loaded the final crates and supplies. Helen looked back toward the palace. A final glance. A final breath. A final memory of the life she was abandoning. Paris took her hand firmly.
From this moment forward, you are not the Queen of Sparta. You are Helen of Troy.
The ship's ropes were cut. Waves carried them away. And the sun began to rise, as if trying to reveal their betrayal to the world. But it was too late. As the ship moved across the sea, storms gathered. Winds howled. Waves crashed. Lightning carved the sky. Some sailors whispered, "The gods are angry." Others said, "The world resists fate." Helen gripped the railing, fear tightening her chest.
Paris, what have we done?
Paris placed his cloak over her shoulders.
We followed our hearts. The gods will protect us.
But among the thunder, another goddess watched. Hera. Betrayed. Enraged. And beside her, Athena, cold and silent. Their fury would soon become an army. Days later, the storm faded. Troy emerged on the horizon, golden walls, proud towers, shining in the sun. Helen's breath caught. She was no longer a queen returning home. She was a stolen treasure entering a kingdom that did not yet know she would become its curse. Paris smiled.
Welcome home.
But not everyone would welcome her. For Troy did not just receive a queen. It received a reason for war. When Menelaus returned and found Helen gone, his grief turned to fury. He reminded Greece of the oath they swore. To defend the husband of Helen, at any cost. One by one, kingdoms rallied. Ships were built. Armor sharpened. Banners raised. The greatest army in Greek history prepared to sail for Troy. All because of love. Or desire. Or a promise spoken by gods who play with mortal hearts. The world now moved toward war, a war fueled by beauty, pride, betrayal, and fate. Helen and Paris were together. But peace was gone. And the drums of war had begun. Next story will be episode 6, The Oath of the Greek Kings. Why all Greek heroes were forced to go to war. Wars do not begin on battlefields. They begin in hearts. In jealousies. In betrayals. In promises long forgotten. And in oaths that no mortal should ever swear. Helen was gone. A queen vanished from Sparta. A king broken. A country humiliated. But no one knew yet that her disappearance would awaken an ancient oath. One sworn by the greatest warriors Greece had ever known. A promise made in peace, now forged into war. This is the story of how Greece, from the smallest island to the mightiest kingdom, was dragged into a conflict they could not escape. The Oath of the Greek Kings. And why every hero, from Achilles to Odysseus, was forced into the Trojan War. The day Menelaus returned from Crete, the sun over Sparta seemed wrong, too bright, too calm, as if mocking the storm rising inside him. He walked into his palace, expecting Helen to greet him. But the corridors were silent. No footsteps. No soft voice. No queen. Servants bowed nervously. Their eyes darted away. Menelaus felt unease crawling up his spine. He entered Helen's chamber. Empty. Gown missing. Jewelry gone. Golden hairpins scattered like abandoned memories. A single piece of Helen's cloak lay on the floor, torn on the edge. Menelaus picked it up with shaking hands. And then the truth hit him. Menelaus, whispering?
She's gone.
A sound escaped him, half roar, half cry. A king broken not by war, but by love lost. Guards rushed in.
My king, the Trojan prince, Paris. He has sailed. And the queen, she is not in Sparta.
The room froze. Paris. A guest. Protected by sacred hospitality. A man Menelaus trusted. Menelaus's voice lowered into cold fury.
He has taken what is mine.
And then, as he stood in the ruins of his marriage, he remembered the oath. The ancient promise sworn by every king of Greece. The oath of Tyndareus. Menelaus's eyes darkened.
Summon my brother. Summon Agamemnon.
Years before Helen married Menelaus, the greatest gathering of Greek heroes had stood in Sparta seeking her hand. Her beauty almost sparked war even then. To prevent bloodshed, the cunning king Odysseus proposed a single solution.
Let all suitors swear an oath, to defend the chosen husband of Helen against any who would harm or steal her.
Every hero placed his hand on a sacrificed horse and swore the oath. A vow sanctified by Zeus. This oath was no simple promise. It was binding. Unbreakable. Sacred. To break it was to invite the wrath of the gods. And so every man, from kings to demigods, swore to defend Helen's marriage. Now that oath would awaken. Agamemnon's chariot thundered into Sparta, dust clouds swirling behind him. He entered the hall silently, his eyes fixed on his brother. Menelaus stood before him, not as a king, but as a grieving man. Menelaus held out Helen's cloak. Agamemnon's jaw tightened.
Paris stole my wife. My honor. My kingdom.
Agamemnon placed a hand on his brother's shoulder.
Then Greece will take her back.
Menelaus looked up, desperate.
Will they come? All of them? Will they honor the oath?
Agamemnon's expression darkened.
They have no choice.
Heralds were dispatched across the Greek world. To kings, to heroes, to demi-gods, to islands and mountains and citadels, carrying one command. By the oath of Tyndareus, assemble Aulis. Prepare for war against Troy. Some were already sharpening their swords. Some were reluctant. Some were furious. All were bound. One by one, the greatest heroes of the age received the summons. In Ithaca, Odysseus sat by his newborn son, Telemachus. His wife Penelope stood beside him. Odysseus had no desire for war. He valued home over glory. When the messenger arrived, Odysseus frowned.
The oath calls you, Odysseus.
Odysseus whispered.
My own words have become my chains.
He tried to avoid the summons, even pretending madness, but fate was not fooled. He was dragged away from the home he cherished. A king forced into war by an oath he himself had crafted. Ajax the Greater was a mountain of a man. A warrior unmatched in strength. When he heard the summons, he didn't hesitate.
Helen must be returned. Justice must be restored.
He gathered his colossal shield, large enough to cover a man entirely, and prepared for the long voyage. Diomedes, the fiery king of Argos, smiled when he received the oath call. He was young, hungry for glory.
If Paris wants war, I will gladly deliver it.
He rallied his troops, shields gleaming like polished suns. Idomeneus, older and battle-hardened, stood before his fleet. He knew the cost of war. He knew Troy was no simple enemy. But he was a man of honor.
I swore the oath. I shall keep it.
And Crete's ships prepared for battle. In sandy Pylos, old King Nestor listened calmly. He had seen many wars. He understood what this war would cost.
The young rush into flame. The old understand the burn.
Still, he assembled his men. For the oath bound him as tightly as any. There was one warrior whose presence could change everything. Achilles. The son of Peleus. The unmatched. The nearly invincible. But Achilles was missing. Hidden by his mother Thetis to keep him far from this war. For she knew the prophecy. If Achilles goes to Troy, he will never return. Agamemnon sent Odysseus to find him, and Odysseus, with cunning and trickery, succeeded. Achilles stood before them, young, brilliant, blazing with raw power.
If my destiny is glory, then glory I shall take.
And the greatest warrior of the age was bound to the war. The Greek ships, armies from every kingdom, gathered at Aulis, the sacred harbor. The sea became black with sails. Air filled with battle cries. Bronze armor flashed like fire. Agamemnon stood before a sea of warriors, over 1,000 ships, tens of thousands of soldiers, the might of Greece united. Never before had such an army been assembled. They were ready. But the gods were not. Days passed. Weeks. The army was ready, but the wind refused to blow. The ships could not move. The sea remained still as stone. Priests whispered. The seers trembled. The gods were angry. An old prophet, Calchas, stepped forward. His voice was weak, but his words cut like blades.
The goddess Artemis is furious. She demands a sacrifice. Agamemnon's daughter, Iphigenia. Only her death will bring the winds.
Silence. Then horror. Agamemnon's face drained of blood.
My daughter? No, there must be another way.
But there was none. The oath had trapped him too. To lead Greece. He would lose his child. To avenge his brother. He would sacrifice his daughter. War demands blood. And the gods demanded hers. A letter was sent to Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's wife. She believed Iphigenia was summoned to marry Achilles. She arrived smiling. Her daughter by her side, beautiful, innocent, unaware. But when truth struck her, her scream shook the tents. Clytemnestra said,
You will kill our child?
Agamemnon wept. He collapsed to the ground. But the army looked at him coldly. Because if the ships could not sail, the war could not be fought. And if the war could not be fought, the oath would be broken. And if the oath was broken, Greece would tear itself apart. So Iphigenia was led to the altar. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice quiet.
Father, it is all right. If Greece must go to war, let my death give them wind.
Agamemnon could not look. The knife was raised. And then? A flash of blinding light. A deer appeared on the altar. Artemis had intervened. Iphigenia vanished, spirited away by the goddess. Her life spared. The debt paid. And the winds finally blew. The winds roared across Aulis. Sails unfurled. Oars slammed into the sea. Horns blasted in triumph. 1,000 ships, the greatest fleet ever assembled, pushed forward across the Aegean. Menelaus watched from shore, his eyes burning with purpose.
Helen. I am coming.
Agamemnon raised his sword toward the horizon.
To Troy. To vengeance. To destiny.
Achilles stood at the bow, wind tearing through his hair.
Let all heroes be remembered.
And as the fleet sailed, the sky seemed to darken, not with clouds, but with fate. The Trojan War had begun. From Olympus, the gods watched. Aphrodite, pleased. Hera, furious. Athena, cold and calculating. Zeus, silent. A mortal love had awakened divine wrath. An oath sworn in peace now forged a war that would last 10 years. And at the center of it all, Helen. Her face, her choice, her destiny had set the world aflame. The Greek kings marched to war. But none of them understood the price that fate would demand. Next episode, Episode 7, The Gathering of Heroes. Agamemnon, Odysseus, Achilles, Ajax, Diomedes assemble. Every war begins with a wound. And this war began with a wound to pride, to honor, to the sacred bond between guest and host. Helen, queen of Sparta, stolen. Menelaus left humiliated, betrayed, dishonored before all of Greece. But the gods had decided the path long before Paris ever set foot in Sparta. And now, that path led straight to war. The Greeks, Achaeans, Argives, Mycenaeans, would not allow a foreign prince to steal one of their queens. And so Menelaus went to the one man who could summon all of Greece. His brother, Agamemnon, High King of Mycenae. The world was about to gather its greatest warriors. The age of heroes stood on the edge of a blade. Agamemnon stood at the head of his great hall, armor hanging across pillars, wolf pelts draped over marble. Menelaus entered, face carved with fury. Agamemnon asked,
"Speak, brother. Why do you come to me with fire in your eyes?"
Menelaus replied,
Paris of Troy has taken Helen, my wife, my honor.
Agamemnon's expression hardened, less from sympathy, more from opportunity. For this war meant power, glory, dominance over all Greece. Menelaus said,
You swore to defend my marriage. Now hold to your oath.
Agamemnon descended from his throne and said,
"And I shall? But we cannot go alone. The oath of Tyndareus binds every king. Every suitor who sought Helen's hand must now march to war."
He smiled and said again,
"We will gather them, all of them."
The age of heroes was about to awaken. Years earlier, when Helen was to marry, dozens of kings sought her hand. Her beauty could ignite jealousy, war, chaos. So the wise Odysseus proposed an oath. All suitors must vow to defend Helen's chosen husband against any future threat. And now, that threat had come. Greece would march. Not for Menelaus. Not for Helen. But because an oath bound them. Agamemnon unfurled a massive map of the Aegean and said, "We send word to them all. To Ithaca, to Argos, to Salamis, to Crete. Let every hero answer the call." And so the messengers rode out. To kings. To warriors. To legends. In Ithaca, Odysseus stood beside his newborn son, Telemachus. War was the last thing he wanted. He had a peaceful kingdom. A loving wife, Penelope. A child barely 1 month old. But Odysseus knew something others did not. If he went to Troy, he would not return for many years. He tried to avoid the summons. When Agamemnon's messenger, Palamedes, arrived, Odysseus pretended to be mad. He drove an ox and a donkey yoked together. One tall, one short, an uneven pair. He plowed the beach instead of his fields. He sowed salt instead of grain. Palamedes watched him silently. Then, he took baby Telemachus, and laid him in front of the plow. Odysseus froze. His eyes shifted from the child to Palamedes. He turned the plow aside, saving his son. Palamedes said, "You are not mad, Odysseus. And you will join us in war?" Odysseus exhaled sharply, defeated. Odysseus said, "So the sea calls me again. Even if it tears me from everything I love." And thus the cleverest of Greeks joined the coming war. Next, the messengers rode to Popilus. Nestor, oldest and wisest of the Greek kings, received them with calm dignity and replied, "I am too old to fight. But not too old to lead." His age was no weakness. He had fought centaurs, giants, monsters. His advice carried the weight of decades. Tell Agamemnon the ships of Pylus will join him. Greece must stand united. And thus wisdom joined the coming war. Diomedes, the young lion of Argos. In Argos, a young warrior trained relentlessly. His blade moved like lightning, clean, precise, deadly. This was Diomedes, the youngest of Greece's champions. And one of the most fearsome. When Agamemnon's envoy arrived, he did not hesitate and agree to join. If Menelaus calls for aid, Argos will answer. He placed his sword on his shoulder. And I will bring 20 ships. In time, Diomedes would become second only to Achilles himself. But for now, he was simply a young lion eager for glory. Ajax the Great of Salamis. A colossal man stood atop the cliffs of Salamis, broad-shouldered, towering, immovable. This was Ajax the Great, son of Telamon. His strength rivaled Heracles. His shield was the size of a barn door. He did not fear gods or men. When the messenger arrived, Ajax simply nodded. I will stand with Menelaus. He strapped on his armor, heavy bronze that only he could lift. Tell Agamemnon, I bring 12 ships. And my spear. And thus, strength joined the coming war. But the most important hero was missing. Achilles, son of Thetis, blessed with near immortality, destined to become the greatest warrior who ever lived. But his mother, Thetis, knew a terrible prophecy. If Achilles went to Troy, he would win eternal glory, but die young. So she hid him among the daughters of King Lycomedes on the island of Skyros, disguised as a girl, wearing silk instead of bronze. Agamemnon needed him. Greece needed him. The prophecies demanded it. So Odysseus devised a plan. He came to the women's hall disguised as a merchant, with jewelry, dresses, perfumes, and a single sword and shield. When raiders' horns suddenly filled the air, an alarm Odysseus staged. One girl leapt forward, grabbing the sword instinctively. Her stance flawless. Her eyes blazing. Her movement unmistakable. Odysseus, smiling, Achilles, son of Peleus, your disguise is admirable. But Greece needs its greatest warrior. Achilles stared at him, caught between destiny and life. Achilles replied, my mother says I will die young if I go. Odysseus said, perhaps. But you will also live forever. Achilles closed his eyes. Then nodded. Achilles said, prepare my armor. I will join the war. And thus, the greatest of all heroes stepped onto the path of fate. Agamemnon stood atop a rocky cliff overlooking the harbor of Aulis. Below him, the sea was filled with ships, hundreds upon hundreds. Long ships with dragon heads. Black ships with oars like wings. Crested prows painted in red and gold. 1,000 sails blotting the horizon. The greatest army the world had ever seen. Agamemnon smiled and said, Greece has answered. One by one, the heroes arrived. Nestor, wise and noble. Odysseus, cunning and sharp-eyed. Ajax, towering like a living fortress. Diomedes, fierce and burning with ambition. Menelaus, determined to reclaim his honor. And finally, Achilles, whose mere presence commanded awe. The air trembled with destiny. Nestor said, this is an army worthy of legend. Odysseus replied, let Troy tremble. Heroes have gathered. Achilles joined, it is only the beginning. But the gods were watching. And the gods were not yet ready to let them sail. For days, the ships remained trapped. The sea lay flat as glass. No breeze. No tide. No movement. The army grew restless. Agamemnon summoned Calchas, the prophet. The goddess Artemis is angered. Agamemnon, you have offended her. Agamemnon said, how? Calchas replied, you boasted you were the finest hunter. Better than Artemis herself. A hush fell. Calchas again said, to appease her, you must sacrifice your daughter. Agamemnon froze. Menelaus looked away. Odysseus clenched his jaw. Achilles stared at the prophet in disbelief. The army held its breath. Calchas again said, only then will the winds return. The gathering of heroes had come together, but their journey had not yet begun. And before they could sail, a father would face the most terrible decision of his life. Thus the stage was set for episode 8. The sacrifice of Iphigenia. The world had never seen warriors such as these. Men whose deeds would echo for thousands of years. Men who would face gods, monsters, prophecy, and death. Men who would carve their names into myth. But before they could cross the sea, a sacrifice must be made. And so ends episode 7, The Gathering of Heroes. The storm has assembled, and its first lightning strike is yet to fall. The greatest army Greece had ever gathered was trapped. 1,000 ships, tens of thousands of warriors, the finest heroes of the age, all waiting for a single breath of wind. But the sea was still. The banners did not move. The sky watched without mercy. At Aulis, hope hung motionless. And the gods watched in silence. The prophet Calchas stood before Agamemnon with trembling hands.
My king, the winds are held by Artemis.
Why? What have I done to anger her?
You boasted that your skill with the bow surpassed hers.
Agamemnon froze. A careless moment. A reckless claim. And now a goddess demanded balance. Again Calchas said,
she asks for nothing less than the life of your daughter.
The silence that followed was heavier than iron. Agamemnon felt the world shift beneath his feet. A king could command armies, but before the will of the gods, he was powerless. That night, Agamemnon sat alone in his tent. The armor beside him gleamed like a second, colder face. He wrote a letter with shaking hands. A lie. A cruel lie. That Iphigenia, his beloved daughter, was to be brought to Aulis. To marry Achilles. It was the only way to bring her here without fear. Menelaus entered without knocking. And said,
you sent for her? Don't do this, brother. Call it off.
Agamemnon clenched the letter to his chest. And replied,
if I refuse, Greece will fracture, the army will turn on me, and the gods will punish us all.
And what of her? What of the child who once held your finger as she learned to walk?
Agamemnon turned away.
If this sacrifice means saving thousands, how can I choose otherwise?
Because she is your daughter.
Agamemnon's voice finally cracked.
And if I refuse, this army, your army, will burn my kingdom to the ground.
A king's decision is made of stone. A father's heart is made of flesh. Tonight, Agamemnon was both, and breaking apart. Achilles stood sharpening his spear, when Odysseus approached. Odysseus said,
Achilles, you should know something.
Achilles paused. His eyes narrowed. Odysseus again said,
Iphigenia was not summoned to marry you. There is no wedding.
Achilles' hand tightened on the spear, and replied,
You think I would allow my name to deceive a young girl?
It was the only way to bring her here. Artemis demands.
No.
But he stepped forward, voice rising.
If this army requires the death of an innocent child, then it is not an army of heroes.
Odysseus held his gaze.
Will you protect her, even if it means turning against Agamemnon?
Achilles looked toward the shore, toward the silent ships, toward the still horizon.
I will not let her die, not while I still draw breath.
Destiny was already moving faster than any blade. Iphigenia arrived with her mother Clytemnestra, smiling, unaware of the storm awaiting her.
Is Achilles kind? Does he truly wish to marry me?
Clytemnestra kissed her forehead, and replied,
I have heard he is the noblest of all the Greeks.
At the shoreline, Agamemnon saw them approaching. Iphigenia ran to her father, arms open.
Father.
Agamemnon caught her, and held her too tightly. She laughed.
You act as though you've not seen me in years.
Agamemnon could not answer. His throat closed. Clytemnestra greeted him with cold eyes.
My husband, what truth hides behind your silence?
Agamemnon looked away. For the first time, the king who commanded nations could not command his own voice. Achilles entered with fury, and said,
Iphigenia, there is no marriage.
Her smile faded. Clytemnestra stepped forward like a lioness protecting her cub, and said,
What does he mean?
No one answered. Achilles looked at Agamemnon, and said,
Tell her. She deserves to hear it from her father.
Agamemnon's hands shook. He finally forced the words out.
Artemis demands your life. Artemis demands your life.
Iphigenia stared at him in disbelief. The world around her collapsed, silently.
You would kill your own daughter.
Agamemnon fell to his knees before them.
I tried to stop this, but Greece cannot sail. The gods.
The gods, or your desire for glory.
Achilles stepped between them.
This will not happen. No god commands me to stand idle while a child dies. For a moment, hope sparked again.
But hope burns quickly in the presence of prophecy. Iphigenia walked alone by the sea. She was young, too young for sacrifice, too young for destiny. Yet her steps were steady. Achilles approached, gentle now, not the warrior forged in flame.
I will protect you. I swear it.
She smiled sadly.
There would be bloodshed. Your men against my father's. Greece tearing itself apart.
Let it. Your life is worth more than any war.
Iphigenia touched his cheek.
Achilles. You seek glory. You are meant for greatness. If I run, you will be branded a traitor. Your legend will die before it begins.
His voice cracked.
To the gods with legends.
Iphigenia looked at the still sea.
If my death brings wind to these sails, if it ends this suffering, then let my life be my gift to Greece.
Achilles stepped back as if struck.
No, Iphigenia, No.
But she had already begun walking toward her fate. Her courage humbled even the greatest warrior who would ever live. The army stood in silence. Tens of thousands. No armor clattered. No whispers spread. Only the sound of seabirds. Iphigenia walked toward the altar, white dress fluttering like a spirit already halfway between worlds. Clytemnestra screamed her name. Menelaus held her back. Agamemnon could not look. He stared at the ground, a king ashamed. Calchas raised the ceremonial blade. Iphigenia's voice came out.
I walk willingly. Let Greece sail. Let my name be remembered not with sorrow, but with purpose.
She closed her eyes. The blade rose. The wind stopped completely. Silence. And then, a flash. A burst of white light so brilliant that even Achilles shielded his eyes. When the light faded, Iphigenia was gone. In her place lay a white deer, sacred to Artemis. Calchas dropped the blade. The goddess had intervened. Artemis had taken Iphigenia away to a distant, secret land. Alive. Saved. A divine mercy granted at the final moment. The sea, silent for weeks, suddenly roared. Winds surged across the Aegean, whipping banners into furious motion. Sails billowed. Ships strained against their ropes. The army erupted into shouts of triumph. Nestor raised his staff. Ajax beat his shield. Diomedes lifted his spear skyward. Odysseus watched with relief and dread. And Achilles looked out at the horizon with quiet fury. Victory came at a price none of them would forget. Agamemnon lifted his chin, reclaiming the mask of a king. He ordered,
Prepare the ships, we sail for Troy.
The greatest war in mythic history was finally about to begin. But in the shadows of Aulis, something far more powerful had awakened. The wrath of a mother. Clytemnestra stared at Agamemnon with eyes that promised one thing. One day, you will pay? The Greek fleet launched as one. 1,000 prows cutting through the sea. Bronze helmets gleaming. Heroes standing at the front of their ships like statues of fate. Achilles at the prow of the Myrmidon ship, jaw set, heart still burning. Odysseus calm, calculating the long journey ahead. Ajax ready for battle. Diomedes eager to make his name immortal. Nestor praying softly. Menelaus staring east, toward the city that stole his queen. Agamemnon at the front of his flagship, eyes hard as iron. The winds had returned. The ships were moving. And destiny was finally in motion. Ahead lay Troy. Ahead lay glory. Ahead lay death. The war of 1,000 tales had begun. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you're still here, it means you truly enjoyed the story, and that means the world to me. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves mythology as much as you do. Some men are born to live. Some are born to rule. And some are born for only one purpose. To become legend, and to die for it. Before Troy burned. Before Hector fell. before the world learned to fear his name. There was a child born of sea and prophecy. His name was Achilles. And from the moment he took his first breath, the fates had already written the final page of his life. Thetis, a sea nymph of radiant beauty, rose from the waters one night carrying her newborn son. The ocean itself bowed to her. But her heart was heavy. For the moment Achilles was born, the fates whispered his future. Two paths lay before him. A long, quiet life, forgotten by the world. Or a short, blazing life, ending in eternal glory. Thetis screamed into the waves. Thetis whispered, breaking, "No. Not my child? Not this fate." She went to the only being who could bend destiny. The river Styx. At the edge of the underworld, where the river Styx moved like living shadow, Thetis held her infant son. His tiny fingers curled around her thumb. With trembling hands, she lowered him into the sacred waters. The river hissed. Fate resisted. Power burned through the child's skin. The water hardened his flesh. Strength poured into his bones. Death recoiled from his form. But in her fear, Thetis held him by the heel. And one place, just one, remained untouched by divinity. Thetis pulled him from the river. He did not cry. Thunder rolled across the dead sky. The bargain was sealed. Achilles would be nearly invincible, but never fully immortal. A godlike shield, with a single hidden crack. Peleus, mortal king and warrior, took the child into his arms. He did not know how to raise a demigod. He only knew how to raise a son.
Father, why do people bow when they see me fight?
Peleus hesitated.
Because they see what you do not yet understand. You were born different.
Even as a child, Achilles outran horses. Stopped grown men with bare hands. His skin turned aside blades meant for warriors twice his age. Villagers whispered. Some in awe. Some in fear. Peleus saw what the world would one day become to his son. And he knew Achilles needed more than a king. He needed a master. On the slopes of Mount Pelion lived Chiron, the immortal centaur. Unlike his savage kin, Chiron was a healer, a scholar, a master of war and restraint. Peleus brought Achilles to him.
Teach him to live before the world teaches him to kill.
Chiron studied the boy carefully.
This child will shake the pillars of history. I only hope he learns mercy before rage.
And so Achilles was trained not just in war, but in medicine, music, philosophy, honor, balance between fury and restraint. Chiron taught him that a true warrior knew when not to strike. But fate had sharper plans. One night, a massive lion descended from the hills and attacked nearby villages. Men fled. Weapons shattered. The beast was unstoppable. Achilles was still a youth. Chiron warned him.
You are strong, but reckless. Power without restraint is a curse.
Achilles did not listen. He hunted the lion alone. The forest trembled. Claws tore flesh. The beast's fangs slammed against Achilles' chest, and shattered like glass. Achilles killed it with his bare hands. When he returned, drenched in blood, Chiron saw it in his eyes. Not horror. Not fear. Exultation. The fire had awakened. That night, Thetis returned from the sea. She stood before Chiron and Peleus.
The Trojan War is coming, and Achilles stands at its center.
Peleus clenched his fists.
Then I will forbid him from ever going.
Thetis shook her head.
You cannot outrun prophecy. Only choose how it unfolds.
She turned to Achilles.
My son, if you go to Troy, you will gain eternal glory and die young.
Achilles didn't flinch.
If you stay, you will live long, unknown, unremembered.
Silence hung between them. The boy who wrestled lions finally felt fear. Not of death, but of being forgotten. Thetis made her choice. If destiny demanded Troy, she would hide Achilles from the world. She disguised him among the daughters of King Lycomedes. Silk replaced bronze. Perfume replaced blood. Silence replaced battle. For a time, Achilles lived as a shadow of himself. But war lives inside some men. It does not sleep. Even in disguise? He moved like a fighter, stood like a warrior, watched the horizon like a predator. And destiny found him anyway. Thetis made her choice. If destiny demanded Troy, she would hide Achilles from the world. She disguised him among the daughters of King Lycomedes. Silk replaced bronze. Perfume replaced blood. Silence replaced battle. For a time, Achilles lived as a shadow of himself. But war lives inside some men. It does not sleep. Even in disguise? He moved like a fighter, stood like a warrior, watched the horizon like a predator. And destiny found him anyway. One evening, as the wind howled across Skyros, Achilles stood alone on a cliff. Thetis, appearing from the sea.
You can still turn away.
From what?
From the path that ends your life.
Achilles looked toward the waves.
If I live without meaning, then I am already dead.
I dipped you in the river of death itself. Everything in this world will fall before you, except one final blow.
Then let the world strike it.
Thetis wept. She had saved her son from death, only to lose him to destiny. Achilles gathered the Myrmidons, elite warriors who would follow him into hell itself.
You do not fight for kings. You fight for me. And I will never send you where I will not go first.
They roared in devotion. Not loyalty to a throne, but to a living weapon. On the eve of departure, Achilles stood alone. Bronze greaves, blazing shield, helmet crowned with horsehair flame. In reflection, he no longer saw a boy. He saw the child of prophecy, the warrior of two fates, the man who would become terror itself on the battlefield. He whispered,
"Let the world remember me."
Achilles would become the greatest warrior who ever lived. His name would be carved into the bones of history. His fury would shatter armies. His grief would break gods. But even as the world prepared to witness his glory, death walked quietly beside him. One step behind, waiting for the one place the river had not touched. The heel. In the next episode, a king will pretend madness. A child will be used as proof of sanity. And one of the greatest minds in history will be dragged into a war he tried to escape. Episode 10, Odysseus and the Struggle to Avoid War. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you're still here, it means you truly enjoyed the story, and that means the world to me. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves mythology as much as you do. Your support helps this epic journey continue, episode after episode. Once again, thank you for watching, thank you for staying till the end. And I'll see you in the next chapter of Trojan Mythology. Not every hero runs toward war. Some see it coming from far away. They do not hear glory in the clash of shields. They hear screams, widows, graves. Among all the kings of Greece, there was one man who understood something the others did not. This war would not end quickly. And it would not end kindly. His name was Odysseus of Ithaca. And before Troy ever fell, he tried everything in his power not to go. Ithaca was small, rocky, insignificant compared to Mycenae or Sparta. But to Odysseus, it was everything. He stood on a cliff overlooking the sea, holding his infant son Telemachus. Behind him, Penelope watched silently.
This child will grow up not knowing war.
Penelope smiled faintly.
You speak as if the world listens to wishes.
Odysseus did not smile back. He had heard the rumors. Paris, Helen, oaths being remembered. And worse than rumor, he remembered the words he himself had spoken years ago. The oath of Tyndareus. An oath meant to prevent war. Now dragging all of Greece into one.
I swore to protect a marriage, not to burn the world for it.
The messenger arrived at dawn. Bronze armor. Royal seal. The order was simple. By command of Agamemnon, High King of Mycenae, Odysseus of Ithaca is to join the expedition against Troy. Penelope closed her eyes. Penelope knew her husband. She knew that when Odysseus became quiet, he was most dangerous.
You're thinking of refusing.
I'm thinking of surviving.
She looked at their child.
And if you go?
Odysseus hesitated.
Then Ithaca may lose its king. And Telemachus, his father.
That night, Odysseus did something no Greek king had ever dared to do. He chose deception over honor. At dawn, the people of Ithaca gathered in confusion. Their king stood barefoot on the beach. An ox and a donkey were yoked together, uneven, mismatched. Odysseus guided the plow across sand instead of soil. Behind him, instead of seed grain, he scattered salt. The people whispered.
The fields will grow white this year. Salt harvest. Salt harvest.
His eyes were unfocused. His hair unkempt. The messenger watched carefully.
The king has lost his mind.
But Agamemnon was not convinced. He sent another man. A clever one. Palamedes.
Forgive me, Queen. But truth demands cruelty.
He placed the infant directly in front of the plow. The ox moved forward. The donkey followed. The blade approached the child. And in that instant, Odysseus screamed.
Stop!
He wrenched the plow aside, dropping to his knees. He grabbed his son, holding him to his chest. Silence fell across the shore. Palamedes nodded.
The mind of a madman does not protect reason.
That evening, Odysseus packed his armor. Penelope said nothing at first. Then,
You promised.
Odysseus stopped.
I promised to try.
She stepped closer.
Will you come back?
Odysseus looked at her for a long time.
I don't know.
That was the most honest answer he had ever given. He knelt before Telemachus.
Remember this, my son. Strength wins battles, but wisdom decides who survives them.
The child did not understand. Penelope did. As Odysseus walked away, she whispered,
Outsmart the war, like you outsmart everything else.
As Odysseus sailed toward Aulis, he watched the sea with grim clarity. He knew the men gathering there. Agamemnon, hungry for power. Menelaus, burning for revenge. Achilles, chasing immortality. Ajax, built for battle, not restraint. And Odysseus. He was built for survival.
They will call me a coward. They will call me clever. But when the dead begin to pile up, they will call for me.
The sea offered no answers. Only distance from home. Aulis was chaos. Ships stretched beyond the horizon. Warriors argued, boasted, trained, prayed. Odysseus walked through them unnoticed at first. Then eyes turned. Whispers spread. Odysseus of Ithaca. The man who tried to escape. Diomedes studied him with curiosity. Nestor greeted him with respect. Achilles looked at him with quiet interest.
So you're the one who tried to run.
I prefer to think of it as thinking ahead.
Achilles smirked.
You'll find no escape now.
No. But I may find a way to end this faster.
Achilles laughed. He did not yet understand what kind of man stood before him. Agamemnon faced Odysseus coldly.
You tried to disgrace this army.
I tried to save it.
Agamemnon scoffed.
Save it? From glory?
From 10 years of death.
The tent fell silent. Agamemnon leaned forward.
You will serve this war with your mind, or I will make an example of you.
Odysseus bowed slightly.
My mind is the only weapon I trust.
That night, Odysseus stood alone. He watched Achilles laugh among warriors. Ajax sharpening his spear. Diomedes training endlessly.
They believe war is a storm you survive by strength. They do not see that it is a maze. And someone must find the exit.
He turned toward the dark sea.
I will do what must be done, even if history hates me for it.
Odysseus did not want war. But war wanted him. Not for his strength. Not for his courage. But for his mind. He would become the architect of survival. The voice of reason among monsters. The man who ended wars with tricks when heroes failed with swords. But for now, he was just another king dragged toward Troy by an oath he once believed would prevent bloodshed. The war had not yet begun. But Odysseus had already lost the first battle. The battle to stay home. In the next episode. A cursed gift of sight. Prophecies no one wants to hear. And a city that ignores its own salvation. Episode 11, The Prophets of Troy, Cassandra and Helenus. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you're still here, it means you truly enjoyed the story, and that means the world to me. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves mythology as much as you do. Your support helps this epic journey continue, episode after episode. Once again, thank you for watching, thank you for staying till the end. The fall of Troy was not sudden. It was not accidental. And it was not unseen. Before the first Greek ship ever touched Trojan sand. Before the first spear was raised. Troy was warned. Not once. Not twice. But again. And again. The gods sent messengers. Not warriors. Not kings. But prophets. And Troy did what doomed cities always do. It refused to listen. Troy stood untouched by war. Its walls, built by gods, rose like mountains. Its towers caught the sun. Its gates had never been broken. Merchants laughed in the streets. Children ran freely. The people believed their city eternal. King Priam watched from his palace balcony and said,
"Our walls are strong, our allies many, and the gods favor Troy."
But gods do not favor pride. They test it. Cassandra, daughter of Priam, knelt alone in the temple of Apollo. She was beautiful, intelligent, and chosen. Apollo had given her a gift no mortal should possess. True sight. She saw things as they were, as they would be, and as they must end. But Cassandra refused Apollo's love. And gods do not forgive rejection. So Apollo twisted his blessing. He cursed her so that she would always seek the truth. And no one would ever believe her. Cassandra gasped as visions crashed into her mind. Fire. Blood. Falling towers. Screams echoing through streets.
No. Not Troy.
She ran from the temple. Paris had returned from Sparta. Helen stood beside him, radiant, admired, desired. The court rejoiced. Cassandra froze the moment she saw Helen. Her breath caught. Her vision shattered into flames.
No.
She brings ruin. She brings war. The hall fell silent. Paris laughed.
Sister, you see shadows where there is love.
Helen looked uneasy.
She is the spark. She is the flame. Because of her, Troy will burn.
Priam raised his hand.
Enough. You shame your brother with madness.
The court turned away. Cassandra stood alone, already mourning a city that still celebrated. Unlike Cassandra, Helenus, Priam's son, was calm. Measured. Respected. His visions came not as screams, but as cold certainty. Helenus studied signs in the sky. Dreams sent by gods. Ominous patterns no one else noticed. Helenus said,
"The Greeks will come. Not because they hate us, but because oath and pride demanded."
Priam listened. But listening is not believing.
Our walls were built by Poseidon himself. No army can breach Troy.
Helenus hesitated and said,
"The walls will stand, but Troy will fall from within."
That was the prophecy Priam refused to hear. Cassandra burst into the council uninvited.
They are coming. Ships like a forest upon the sea.
Priam rose angrily.
You speak madness in the presence of kings.
I speak truth.
Sister is right.
The room stilled. Helenus said,
The Greeks will land. The war will last many years. And Troy will not fall by strength, but by deception.
The princes exchanged uneasy looks. Paris scoffed.
So we surrender because you dream badly?
Hector remained silent, troubled, thoughtful. But Priam made his choice.
We will not live in fear of prophecy. Troy will stand.
The council dispersed. The warnings were ignored. History sealed itself. Cassandra wandered the palace halls alone. Visions struck her without mercy. She saw the gates burning, warriors hiding inside a wooden beast, her father dead at the altar, Andromache dragged away, children screaming in fire. She collapsed. Cassandra, weeping.
Why show me, if I cannot stop it?
No god answered. Hector approached Helenus quietly and asked,
If Troy falls, how does it happen?
Helenus met his eyes, said,
When Achilles comes, do not face him alone.
Hector clenched his jaw.
When the Greeks pretend to leave, do not trust their gift.
Hector exhaled, slowly.
And Paris?
Helenus said nothing. Hector understood. For the first time, Troy's greatest defender felt fear. Cassandra warned the people. They laughed.
The mad princess speaks again.
If she sees fire, let her sell water.
Even Helen avoided her gaze. Cassandra stood screaming truth into a city deaf with pride.
Your joy is borrowed. Your walls are not enough.
No one listened. They never do. Apollo's flame dimmed. Athena's statue cracked. Omens appeared everywhere. But Troy had crossed the point of no return. When prophecy is ignored long enough, the gods stop warning. They begin watching. Cassandra climbed the highest tower of Troy. She looked out toward the dark sea.
They are already on the water.
Behind her, the city slept. Unaware? Unready. Troy was warned by voices cursed to be ignored. By visions too terrible to accept. By truths too inconvenient to believe. And so the greatest city of the age walked willingly toward its own destruction. Not because it lacked knowledge, but because it lacked the courage to believe it. In the next episode, the ships arrive. The first warrior steps onto Trojan soil. And the war finally begins. Episode 12, The Departure, Paris returns to Troy with Helen. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you're still here, it means you truly enjoyed the story, and that means the world to me. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves mythology as much as you do. Your support helps this epic journey continue, episode after episode. Once again, thank you for watching, thank you for staying till the end. And I'll see you in the next chapter of Trojan mythology. There are moments in history that appear harmless. Moments filled with music, laughter, color, and relief. Moments where people believe the danger has passed. Simply because they cannot yet see it. This was one of those moments. The war had not begun. The ships had not landed. No blood had touched Trojan soil. And yet, everything was already lost. Because on this day, Paris returned to Troy. And Helen returned with him. Not as a prisoner. Not as a warning. But as a prize. The Aegean Sea was calm. Too calm. The kind of stillness that makes sailors uneasy, as if the water itself is holding its breath. Paris ships cut through the blue like knives through silk. Bronze prows gleamed in the sun. Trojan banners fluttered proudly, untouched by doubt. On deck stood Paris, no longer the shepherd who once fled prophecy, but the prince who believed he had outwitted fate. Behind him stood Helen. She did not look like a woman stolen. She did not look like a woman rescued. She looked like a woman already carried too far to remember the road back. As Troy's walls rose on the horizon, Paris felt triumph swell in his chest. This was not exile. This was return. And Troy would welcome them. Troy had never been taken. Its walls were not just stone, they were belief. Belief in divine protection. Belief in destiny favoring the city of Priam. Belief that no foreign army could ever break what gods themselves had built. As the ships entered the harbor, horns sounded. Not alarms. Celebrations. The gates opened wide. The streets filled. The city leaned forward to witness the prince's return. And when Helen stepped onto Trojan soil, the air changed. People stopped breathing, not from fear, but from awe. Beauty has power. And Helen carried it like a weapon no one recognized as dangerous. Cassandra saw her first. She did not scream this time. She did not run. She stood still, as if every vision she had ever endured had finally taken shape in a single human form. Helen. The woman who was not a monster. Not a demon. Not a destroyer by intention. And yet, the hinge on which Troy's future would break. Cassandra knew then that her curse had reached its cruelest point. Because the truth was no longer abstract. It was walking through the gates, smiling, admired. And still, no one listened. Priam welcomed Paris as a father welcomes a son returned from danger. With pride. With relief. With blindness. He did not ask what had been broken to bring Helen home. He did not ask which oaths had been shattered. He did not ask which kings now burned with humiliation. Because Troy had walls. Because Troy had allies. Because Troy had never lost. And so the king chose peace over foresight. Not knowing that peace built on denial is only a delay of destruction. Helen was given chambers overlooking the city. From her balcony she saw Troy breathe, its markets, its children, its towers. She was not treated as a cause for fear. She was treated as a symbol of triumph. The city saw her beauty. But beauty never tells you what it costs. At night, Helen dreamed. Not of Sparta. Not of Menelaus. But of fire moving through streets that once celebrated her arrival. She would wake with her heart racing, and the sound of Troy asleep beneath her window. A city dreaming peacefully. On the edge of a nightmare. Hector did not celebrate loudly. He stood apart from the feasting. From the music. From the wine. He watched Paris laugh. Watched Helen smile. And felt something cold settle behind his ribs. Not jealousy. Not anger. Instinct. The instinct of a man who understands war even when war has not yet arrived. Hector had heard the prophets. He had not mocked them. But neither had he been strong enough to force the city to listen. And so Troy moved forward, guided not by wisdom, but by momentum. Cassandra walked through the streets as the celebrations grew. She saw children playing at war, pretending to be heroes they had never met. She saw merchants selling Helen's likeness carved into wood. She saw smiles everywhere. And she understood something more terrible than any vision. Troy was not ignorant. Troy was unwilling. Unwilling to believe that joy could be borrowed. Unwilling to accept that beauty could summon armies. Unwilling to imagine a future different from the past. This was no longer a failure of prophecy. This was a failure of courage. As night fell, the city slept content. The harbor emptied. The music faded. And beyond the horizon, far beyond Trojan sight, another fleet was already moving. Oars dipped into the water in rhythm. Sails caught the same wind that had carried Paris home. But these ships did not carry celebration. They carried memory. They carried humiliation. They carried oaths that had not been forgotten. The Greeks were coming. And Troy was applauding itself. Helen stood alone once more. She understood now that no matter how softly she walked, the ground would still remember her steps. She had not chosen to be the axis of a war. But she had become it. And history does not care whether the center of destruction intended to destroy. Only that it did. The temples grew quiet. Not empty, quiet. The gods had warned. The signs had been given. The prophets had spoken. And now the responsibility belonged solely to mortals. The gods did not abandon Troy. They simply stopped interfering. Which is far worse. This was the last peaceful night Troy would ever know. Not because war arrived the next morning. But because destiny had crossed the final threshold. Paris had returned. Helen was inside the walls. The city had chosen celebration over caution. And from that moment forward, everything Troy did would only decide how it fell, not if. Troy was not destroyed by surprise. It was destroyed by confidence. By beauty mistaken for blessing. By warnings ignored in favor of comfort. The war had not begun. But Troy had already lost the moment it believed it had won. And so ends the age before the war. The sails are already on the horizon. In the next season, the sea will break against Trojan sand. The first hero will fall. And the war that history could not forget will finally begin. Season 2, The War Begins. Episode 13, The First Clash, Death of Protesilaus. Thank you for watching till the very end. If you're still here, it means you truly enjoyed the story, and that means the world to me. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves mythology as much as you do. Your support helps this epic journey continue, episode after episode. Once again, thank you for watching, thank you for staying till the end. And I'll see you in the next chapter of Trojan mythology.